It's 6 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order. Can I get everyone to rise for the flag? All right. I want to thank everyone for coming. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
We do, Mayor. We are going to move actual awards presentations, number 4, which is the code enforcement report. I think there was an attachment on that item, so we're going to move that to the consent calendar. Unfortunately, our code enforcement officer was unable to make it tonight, so we're just going to move that to an information item on the consent calendar for tonight. So we'll move number 4. We also have a special public comment on the Measure C renewal that we're going to move to presentation 2.6. I guess now that we lose 2.4, I think we'll still use it as 2.6 for that.
All right.
And that's it.
Okay. Do I have a motion for?
Oh, we have one more. I'm sorry, Mayor. Under closed session, and I think that's what she's asking. Under closed session number 4, there's only 2 cases, not 3.
Okay. Can I entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the changes.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Agenda is approved with the changes. Going to move on to item number 2, awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations. 2.1 is recognition of the Coalinga wrestling team.
Misty, did you want to come up? Where's Misty at? Who's here for the,
Do we have someone that's here
on behalf?
of the wrestling team? Yeah. Perfect.
Did you want to get those?
Yeah. Okay. Is there something I got to read?
I think they're going to present, and then you're just going to get certificates.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I was gonna speak or anything like that. I just wanted to bring the kids in to get them recognized for the accomplishments they did this year. We had 6 national placers, 2 national champs. We went to 2 different national tournaments. Our 6U team actually finished 4th in the nation at Reno, which is the highest that Coalinga's ever finished. So that's a really big accomplishment for them. I didn't have nothing written up or anything like
You're
that
all
to
good.
say, so if you guys want to
Yeah.
call up their
We
names.
have certificates of
If you guys
recognition
wouldn't,
for all his
if
kids.
you guys wouldn't mind coming up here, I'm going to give you guys some certificates. We can take a little bit of pictures. First certificate I have is from Mikey Vargas, and this is in recognition of Team Coalinga's outstanding performance of the 2025 Reno Rumble and taking 3rd place in the 13 and under 137 weight class. Congratulations, Mikey. All right, the next one is taking 1st place in the 6 and under 43-pound weight class, awarded for Josiah Pease. Is that you? All right. And then the next one is taking 8th place in the 18th and under 100-pound weight class, awarded to Lexi Granillo. I guess that's you. And then the next one is taking 1st place in the 6 and under 40 weight pound class, awarded to Ivan Mateo Zavala. And then we have 6th place in the 6 and under heavyweight class, awarded to Elijah Limon. Is that you? Okay. And so the last award is for the 6th place in the 12th and under 67-pound weight class, awarded to Roman Torres. If you guys would like to take a picture, we could do it with the whole council right here. Sure. All right, we just want to congratulate you guys. Thank you for coming and receiving these awards. We appreciate it. Keep doing good. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item number 2.2, which is Proclamation National Public Works Week 2025.
There you go. And I'm accepting the award,
And,
because they're unfortunately not here tonight.
okay, so City Manager Sean Brewer is going to be accepting the award because they're absent at the moment. And so this is whereas the Public Works Department provides services for our community and are a vital and integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of the community is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water, sewers, streets, fleet maintenance, building maintenance, wastewater treatment, and solid waste collection and airport operations. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials, and whereas the efficiency and effectiveness of the qualified and skilled staff contribute to the quality of life that residents and visitors alike enjoy and rely upon from the city of Coalinga. Now, therefore, by the mayor and city council, that we recognize and extend our appreciation to our dedicated and skilled staff, and hereby proclaim that week of May 18th through 24th, 25 as National Public Works Week, People, Purpose, and Presence, and let it further be proclaimed that the City Council requests that all citizens and civic organizations acquaint themselves with issues involved in providing public works services to our community, and to recognize the contributions in which our public works employees make every day to our health, safety, and comfort and quality of life. In witness hereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Coalinga to be affixed this 15th day of May 2025. Thank you very much for all that you do, and I'm guessing one of the reasons that they're not here is because they're probably out working for the city. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll give that to you. All right, we're going to move on to item number 2.3, presentation from the American Red Cross. Amrit Sidhu, Community Disaster Program Manager of Fresno County. Hopefully I got your name correct. Absolutely.
There should be a little clicker, and he'll set up the presentation for you, and then there should be a clicker right there for you.
And please excuse my phone, I have my notes on my phone, so I apologize for that in advance. But thank you, everyone. Good evening. My name is Amrit Sidhu. I'm the Community Disaster Program Manager.
Ma'am, can I have you talking to the, because if not, it won't, our folks that are viewing remotely won't be able to hear you.
Oh, no problem. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Amrit Sidhu, and I serve as the Community Disaster Program Manager, which is a mouthful, for the American Red Cross for Fresno County. And I'm here to talk a little bit more about how we can partner with the City of Coalinga to build resilience and ensure that Coalinga residents are supported before, during, and after emergencies. Okay. At its core, American Red Cross is a humanitarian organization driven by volunteers and guided by our mission. So our mission is to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. We actually have 5 main lines of service: disaster response and recovery, preparedness education, blood services, services to the armed forces, and international services. I will be focusing primarily on disaster cycle services or disaster response and recovery for today's purposes. Every 8 minutes, the Red Cross responds to a disaster somewhere in the country. And these aren't just large-scale events like hurricanes or wildfires. They include home fires, which are the most common disaster we respond to. Locally, our teams are often the first on the scene to support families after a home fire or other emergency. We have disaster responders that are trained to offer emotional support, distribute essential supplies, and help families start their recovery. We open shelters when needed, provide meals, connect clients with mental health and spiritual care teams, and even replace medications or medical equipment that was lost in a disaster. In Coalinga, our disaster action team is available 24/7 to respond when local first responders call for assistance. Whether it's a single-family fire or a larger evacuation due to a wildfire risk, our team is trained to step in and meet immediate needs. Beyond the initial response, we offer recovery casework to help clients navigate their next steps, access community resources, and develop a longer-term recovery plan. We also partner with other nonprofit agencies, government organizations, and faith-based groups to provide coordinated care after large-scale incidents. Preparedness education for all ages. Preparedness is the cornerstone of resilience, and we offer a suite of educational programs tailored to meet the needs of all age groups in all situations. For government agencies and city departments, we provide trainings on shelter operations, disaster coordination, and volunteer management, which are especially helpful for emergency planning staff or local CERT teams. For the community, we offer age-appropriate presentations. So our Be Red Cross Ready presentation helps families learn how to build a kit, how to make a plan, and stay informed. In schools, we have the Prepare with Pedro presentations, as well as the Pillowcase Project to help children feel empowered and equipped to handle emergencies. We also deliver hands-only CPR training, as well as Ready Rating, which is a free emergency planning tool for local businesses and organizations. The American Red Cross is powered by volunteers. More than 90% of our workforce is volunteer-based nationally. Volunteers are trained, equipped, and supported every step of the way. In Fresno County, we're actively building out our volunteer network, especially in rural communities like here in Coalinga. So opportunities to volunteer include joining our disaster action team, helping with shelter operations, becoming a preparedness educator, supporting logistics, or assisting in recovery casework. There's virtual roles as well, such as disaster dispatch and administrative support, which offer flexibility for busy individuals. Volunteering with the Red Cross is not only a way to give back, but also a way to build local capacity and leadership in emergency response. And I will just say on a personal note, here in Coalinga, we are actively looking for disaster action team members. And these are the members that actually go out on our behalf to respond to home fires. And so the more local of a responder we have, the more immediately we can actually be there to help that family in need. When an emergency happens, time matters. So our 1-800 Red Cross line is staffed 24/7. And can immediately connect clients to local disaster services. We also work with local fire departments and police departments that have a specific direct dispatch channel that they can use, and we have many protocols in place to do so as well. For any non-emergency requests, such as scheduling a presentation, partnering for a preparedness fair, or coordinating disaster response planning, I'm your local contact, so there's my contact information for you there. So my role is mainly to serve as the liaison between our Red Cross team and city's leaders. I also do have direct contact with Fresno County Office of Emergency Services, as well as the state, especially when it comes to our mass care planning. One of the easiest ways to increase household preparedness is by using our free app. We have free emergency mobile apps. The American Red Cross Emergency app delivers real-time weather alerts, step-by-step preparedness guidance, shelter locations based off of GPS location. We also have a first aid app that offers immediate advice for common medical emergencies, and the pet first aid app, which focuses on care for dogs and cats during disasters or health events. All of our apps are available in English and Spanish. They're free to download and are updated regularly to ensure accuracy. So we encourage the City of Coalinga to promote these apps in utility mailers, social media posts, or on city bulletin boards. They're simple, effective tools for keeping residents informed and safe. Another one of our preparedness campaigns is called our Home Fire Campaign. It's called Sound the Alarm. So every day, 7 people die in home fires in the U.S. Through our Home Fire Campaign, we work to reduce that number by installing free smoke alarms and delivering fire safety education. So we prioritize families and households that don't have working smoke alarms, or where residents may face mobility or language barriers. And Sound the Alarm event, which is our signature campaign, we partner with local agencies and volunteers to install hundreds of alarms in a single day. We'd love to work with the City of Coalinga to bring Sound the Alarm events to our community and to promote our year-round on-demand installations, which can be requested at that redcross.org/smoke-alarm website. I took a look at it, and it looks like the last time we did a Sound the Alarm in the City of Coalinga was November of 2017. So it's definitely been a while, and usually smoke alarms have a 10-year shelf life for their batteries. So if we could schedule one in the next year or so, I think that would be really beneficial for this community. Let's prepare Coalinga together. So together we can create a culture of preparedness in Coalinga. That starts with awareness and education, but it grows through community involvement. So we want to help you reach residents where they are, whether that's in schools, faith-based organizations, mobile home parks, or at city events. Ultimately, we're looking to grow our volunteer base specifically here in Coalinga, and then also through growing our volunteer base, creating a larger footprint within the Coalinga community to provide the services that we that are so beneficial to the community at large. So providing public education, training the city staff and volunteers to provide that support during and after disasters, as well as the preparedness of educating youth and families. That all is very, very important. And so once again, that's my contact information. I'm here if you would like to speak with me later about how we can do some of these preparedness programmings within Coalinga. I'd love to speak about that. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Do you have time for some questions if we have any? Yeah, Council have any questions?
Yeah, just one real quick.
Yes.
You mentioned action team members.
Yes.
Is that fire department, police personnel, or is that community people?
It's community people, so we're not considered first responders. They would actually be second responders. So majority of our contact is through, for example, the battalion chief will contact us and let us know when home fire has occurred. What we do is we send volunteers out that have been trained specifically to respond to those fires. We do what we consider a damage assessment, and based off of the extent of the damage and the resources that are needed, we can provide certain resources, whether that's referrals to nonprofit organizations that might provide, for example, food and clothing, or sometimes we can also provide some financial assistance depending on the situation. If the damage is so much so that that family would not be able to return back to that home within 48 hours.
Okay, thank you. And can you leave some information about how you get in touch with, who you'd get in touch with to do that?
Yeah, definitely, I can.
you.
Like I said, we have the direct dispatch number. Otherwise, it's going to be the Red Cross number, but I can leave the direct dispatch number for you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions from council? Okay, I just have, you said you were looking for people to be involved in the local area.
Yeah.
Can you leave some of that information with the city so that we can put that out on our social media and on our website and things of that nature?
Yeah, definitely, I will. Yeah, thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Thank
I
you
can
so
also
much.
leave the contact information for our volunteer services manager, who would be helping them in guiding them through the process of becoming a Red Cross volunteer.
Excellent, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
of course, no problem. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions from anyone? No? Okay, thank you. All right, and so 2.4 has been moved to the consent calendar. And so we're going to go on to 2.5, which is Washington DC One Voice trip update and debrief. Sean Brewer.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll go ahead and kind of give an overview on kind of our trip, and then I'll allow the members of the council that attended the trip as well to add some additional information. And we actually have Robert Phipps here from COG here, who was on the trip with us, so it's kind of convenient. No, I just wanted to give kind of a debrief to the rest of the council and the public on our recent Washington DC One Voice trip. It was an advocacy trip for a specific project for the airport that was as part of a delegation organized by the Fresno Council of Governments, with a delegation of almost 20 people that went to DC from the Fresno County area, representative cities, the county, as well as electeds, mayors from all the agencies within the county. So we had a very busy trip. We arrived on April 27th. April 27th. And our days, we had 2 days consisted of speaking and meeting with our representative, or Congress representatives in DC. And on Tuesday the 29th, we started with Congressman Jim Costa, where all the different agencies presented their projects. These are projects that were prior approved by the council, and those were the discussions that were limited in those meetings with the congressional staff and the congressmen. We met with Congressman Jim Costa, then we went to Senator Adam Schiff's office that day, as well as later in the afternoon, Senator Alex Padilla's office as well. We had an opportunity to talk about our project. The mayor was able to speak on behalf of the city on this project about the airport project. And just to kind of give an overview on that particular project, we were looking for a request for about $3.96 million for the airport, which consisted of funding for runway reconstruction, our weather system improvements, lighting improvements, new hangar construction, as well as a permanent new permanent fueling system as well. And so we basically were requesting for earmark funding, as well as just advocating for support for future grants that we'll be applying for the airport as well. So that's really what the conversations consisted of when we met with our congressmen. Wednesday actually consisted of meeting with Congressman Adam Gray, Vince Fong, and then we ended that day speaking at headquarters at the Department of Transportation with some of the staff from the Department of Transportation, talking about various projects in the valley, but specifically about the city's airport, and support from the FAA and other agencies and departments within Department of Transportation to support our efforts in being able to try and secure funding for this particular effort. So with that, it was a very busy trip. Not a lot of time for resting within those 2 days. We were going from one office to another, and it's quite the experience, I have to say, being able to engage with those folks and really try to get closer with our representatives to see and try to seek funding from them. But I'm gonna let the mayor, Councilman Ramirez, and Councilman Schindler, if they have any comments or remarks from the event.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and open it up to council first, and they can give anything that if there's any remarks or things that they thought was about the trip that was good.
Yeah, I just want to thank the COG representatives. Thank you. It was a good experience. It actually opened up the way it is to get the asking for funding. It is a pattern. It's not just to put your hand out there and just ask for it. If we have to go to Washington and put an agenda there, we will do it. The mayor and city manager, they did a great job with the presentation. Everybody, all the cities that went there, I was very happy they went there. It's actually very exciting to see our little valley out there, because everybody did a well professional presentation, and they put our little rural areas in the map. Talking to the representatives, I'm glad that they noticed where all these little communities are, and it's just an experience that I will never forget, and it just drives me to fight for our community more. And I wish we could do it again, and I wish we could get that funding, and we're hearing good news about it. So thank you to the city manager, mayor, staff, and everybody that make it happen. Thank you.
So it was an interesting trip, and we all had a good time. It was pretty brutal, but I went into it a little skeptical about how it would turn out. I didn't think the representatives would really be attentive to what we had to say, and I was pleasantly surprised that they not only listened, but they engaged, and not only that, many of them had stories about Coalinga. They had been here, and they knew us, and I think us showing up in the numbers that we did really conveyed that to them, that we're serious and we're looking for help. And hopefully some good things will come out of it. It was a great team that went. And, you know, I'm proud to have gone with them. I think we all represented well. There was a couple of times where Mayor Vosberg kind of pulled us out of a slump there. You know, it seemed like he does what he does, you know. It is what it is. But, you know, I had a good time. It was enlightening, and I'm glad to have been able to go. And thank you, Robert and COG.
So, this is a trip that is multi-city in the valley that gets to attend, and we are all advocating on the issues that are pre-approved from each individual city that's then approved at COG. And so those items were well vetted, and we were all there in support of advocacy for each other. So taking a large group makes sense because of the fact that when you're there advocating, there's groups that come all the time that advocate for these particular representatives. And if you're not at the table, you're never even going to see the menu. So it's not as easy as just submitting a grant or submitting an application, which we had done, but it's also that follow-up that, hey, you're willing to come all the way to DC in order to be part of this mission and this group. And we have already seen phone calls immediately came back through our direction. We've already had contact with the officials, some of them that we've met with there. And so I would say that and I've always been an advocate of this trip. And so the reason that I wanted us to take as many people as we did was because I wanted to show everybody how important that this trip is, so that if the current council isn't here, that moving forward, we will always have members that will tell that story of how it was. That way that other people will see how important this is moving forward. If you look at it at a 10-year scale, millions of dollars are rolling through the federal government to COG and utilizing matching funds with state, local, federal, and this is all put together. It's I mean, we could not even come close to making a dent in with what our trip costs in order to look at the overall picture. Like overall, we are winning on this big time. And as Sean said, you know, we got to talk to all the representatives, even ones that were not our direct representatives, like Representative Costa, and he is a hoot. He's always bringing up Kalinga when we're there. He remembers, he cited the earthquake, he cited the different things, and he used to be our congressperson here. And so the event was well attended. Out of the event, I think that two things that I would look at that we did get was that we met with the firefighter, the Carpenters Union. And the Carpenters Union is going to come to Kalinga, and they are going to look at our airport. And also, another thing that we got was the lady from the FAA said that she lives in LA and that she would be traveling through, and she would also come and look at our airport. And why that's important is because the Carpenters Union is what's in charge of building everything. And so it's basically like free lobbying. You know, they're going to come here, they're going to look at our project, and obviously their union workers benefit when projects come in from the government. So it was a great trip. I have to really give it up to Fresno COG and the lobbyists that they had with Simon & Simon, with Jen Covina, for making sure that everything went like clockwork. And let me tell you, there was a lot of close times where, like, meeting after meeting after meeting, and things changed. And so you had to have someone who had the whole thing together. And so I just want to say thank you to COG, and thank you to Simon & Simon, and thanks to Sean. We didn't lose Manny. We kept Manny. Yes.
I got a cramps from walking. Oh my God.
We walked a lot.
Oh my God.
Yes. And so I will, as one thing that we need to do better out of city, and we've discussed this, is that we need to make sure that when money comes through, that whether it's Measure C money or whether it's federal money, that we recognize that fact. Because a lot of times the residents don't just putting it out once on Facebook or putting it out once in the paper, yeah, that has an impact, but we need to have an everlasting place where these things live. And I think that when the folks get up and talk about Measure C, that they have a couple spots where that stuff does exist, where you can go and see those projects and why they're important. So, and I've talked too much about this already, but it was a great trip, and I appreciate us. I appreciate the public and everyone in trusting us to go on this trip. So, thank you. Is there any other comments on no? Okay. So then we're going to move on to citizens' comments, which is going to include a special.
2.6, it's still under 2.6.
It's okay. So it's going to be 2.6. And it's going to be the Measure C update.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a screen over there. I was thinking I'd have to use my phone. So, very excited. Before I speak, I'm Kendall Flint with DKS. I'm the project manager for Measure C, but I also wanted to give a quick little shout out to Brenda Thomas from FCOG, who did a lot of the coordination for your trip and worked really hard on it. And I know that she was very excited that it went so well. So I just wanted to say shout out to her for doing such a great job. Measure C, exactly what you guys were just saying. When you go to Washington, when you go to Sacramento for these trips, these are the funds that are generally used to leverage the grants that you can get later. And we cannot understate the importance of that. So I'm here tonight to just give you an update on all the fun things that relate to that. So come here. Should go forward. Let me try it a different way. Oh, there we go. So first of all, renewing Measure C, it's not a new tax. This has actually been established in 1986. And over that time, there was initial tenure, that was from 86 to 2004, and it did not pass for a renewal, but then it came back in 2006. These funds are basically set up for no other purpose than to fund transportation investments throughout Fresno County. These are specific measure implementation programs that benefit specifically each of the 15 cities as well as the county. All of the money in Measure C is used exclusively for transportation investments. That's transit, local streets and roads, safe routes to schools, all those different things. None of this goes to high-speed rail. We've had a couple folks ask about that recently. I just want to point out, none of this goes to high-speed rail. They cannot touch it. Without this, one of the challenges is really the local agencies and the county being able to maintain their local streets and roads. One of the things we hear a lot is people concerned about potholes and about the condition of roads in general. Let me be clear, there's not enough money, even with Measure C, to make everything pristine. This is the amount of money required to keep us where we're at, and hopefully to be able to make improvements in that as things move forward. Now, this is not going for me. Oh, here we go. So far, Measure C has raised $2.1 billion in actual tax revenue. Now, what's interesting about that is that that's the money that comes back after you pay for shirts and books and things like that. Another $8 billion has been brought in from that match, from leveraging those funds. So think about that. That's basically 4 to 1. For every dollar that is contributed by the folks here, you're getting 4 more. So altogether, that $10 billion has made a tremendous impact here in Fresno and in the Valley in general. The other piece of that is when you think about just the economic impact, that's jobs and the way that we can move goods and services, the impact can go as high as $20 or $30 billion. So it's not a small amount of money. And these, of course, have contributed everything from local streets and roads and also the airport. When you look at that great new center in there where they have all the new TSA things, part of that is funded through Measure C. Things like Senior Script, CalVans, our transit services, these are all Measure C funded. Now, Measure C household, when you live in this area, you're spending about $8 a month. That's per household. That's about the average that it costs folks to do that. And if Measure C is not renewed, it's going to sunset in 2027, basically on May 31st of 2027. If it isn't renewed, then the next opportunity to get something on the ballot is probably 2 years later. And that means you've got a 2-year gap of funding, which won't happen for Coalinga and for all the other jurisdictions. Most of our public agencies have a reliance on those funds, which means that money would have to come from someplace else. And whether that's from police or fire or parks or roads go unmaintained, It depends on the agency, but it's a very real situation. The other part that's very interesting on this is that about 25% of the revenue from Measure C comes from people visiting the county, whether they're coming here to, stop at Harris Ranch, or they're going to the national parks, or they're coming to visit family and friends. 25% of the money that comes in is generated from those visitors. Now, the steering committee has been formed, and I want to shout out to, where's my steering committee member? There he is. He's doing a fabulous job, by the way, although he's very obsessed with the reimbursement for mileage. We're going to work on that. He's awesome. He's been a really good contributor representing you guys. But the point here is the steering committee is a little different than we did in the last couple iterations. So each city found somebody that wanted to represent them, and then we also have some community groups that have folks that are on the committee, and they are focused exclusively on the discussion of the length of the measure, if it renews, 20 years, 30 years, whatever that might look like, the revenue allocation by category. And staff here knows that one of the things we noticed in the current measure, which passed in 2006, there's a lot of language that frankly many members of the public don't understand. Environmental, blah, blah, blah. People want to know if it's a road, if it's transit, if it's a bike path, whatever it is, to make that in the simplest terms. So that's one thing that we've really tried to steer this particular iteration and make sure that we are talking in terms that people understand where their money's going. Then we'll be talking about revenue allocation by agency, meaning when all the money comes in, how is that pie split between the county, the city of Fresno, city of Clovis, and all the other agencies. And then finally, the oversight, and this is incredibly important. Many folks here, and actually everywhere, have this funny thing when they pay a tax. They kind of like to know where the money goes. Where it was spent. And so one of the things we're looking at is maybe more strict enforcement and more strict reporting and more transparent reporting. So people here in Coalinga know exactly where Measure C funds were spent here, as well as in the county and other areas. So that's one of the things that we're talking with them about moving up. Whoever's advancing me, thank you. This is a great site that the FCTA, Fresno County Transportation Authority Board, put together. This is an update, measurec.com. You can go on here and find out what investments have been made, not only here in Coalinga, but countywide, as well as look at all the financials and the annual reports. This has been recently updated with the best and most current information to make it easier for people to have that transparency. If you go to the next slide, you'll notice here, this is just some of the things that happened here in Coalinga. That's $7.8 billion that came into this area. Local road improvements, including Elm Street. It's been helping on the trails. There's also all kinds of regular maintenance issues that have been addressed. And then as Council mentioned tonight, when they go to Washington and they go to Sacramento, these funds are used to leverage grant funds from other sources. So I know many of us were concerned about, paying so much at the gas tank when we're filling up our cars. SB 1, which was passed in 2016, has a set aside of millions of dollars that are only available to counties that have what we call a self-help tax, like we have right now, which means you're eligible to go for those grants for whether it's bike and pedestrian projects, trails, roadways, intersections, whatnot. And that's really important. So here in Coalinga, this measure has been incredibly important to the quality of life and just ensuring that these things happen for this local community. If you look to the next slide, you'll see we've got the ability here to kind of reimagine. So right now, there is no Measure C expenditure plan. Nothing has been determined. And that's kind of what we're about right now with the steering committee and other folks, saying, okay, what do you want? How would you like to see this money spent? And to that end, we've created another website that basically shows, next slide, that shows MeasureC2026.com. The highlight of this one for me is in that middle thing at the top where it says build a plan. So anybody can go on this site and learn about upcoming meetings, but more importantly, go to the next slide, you can tell us how you want the money spent. So there's these different categories, and you can say, okay, I would like this to go 50% to local streets and roads, 20% for bike ped, 20% for whatever you want, we want to hear about it. This is also a multilingual site, so if you click on the upper right, it translates to Spanish, Chinese, Tagalog, whatever you need, it's there. And the most important thing about that is that these are the same questions you're going to be asking at the various workshops and whatnot that we're going to be doing over the summer. So the idea is trying to get as much input from people about how they'd like to see the money spent and make sure that the measure really reflects what people in the county and these local agencies want to see in their communities. Next slide, please. So coming up here in August on the 4th, we're going to be having a community meeting here in Coalinga. We hope you will attend. We hope you will tell friends to attend. And the importance of this is to be able to, again, learn more about what's out there, have us understand what your priorities are, and then to capture all that information. As we go through this process, all of that information, all that outreach is going to be fed back to the steering committee. And those folks are going to be able to make some recommendations to the Fresno Council of Governments Board and the Fresno County Transportation Authority boards so that they can determine if this is the right mix. When we come into the fall, we'll be doing some polling to understand if what the steering committee has suggested is the right mix, if people like that idea. And we'll be coming back through this council and others to explain what people had said. We may make some adjustments in January, February of next year, but if we have a good measure, then we move forward to presenting this to all the councils for a resolution of support, and then ultimately go through the 2 boards and then the Board of Supervisors with the idea of putting this on the November ballot. But again, there is no measure right now. We're asking all of you members of the public to help us craft one by sharing with us what your priorities are. And with that, Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm ready to take any questions that you might have about the process or about what we're doing.
Yeah, can you go to the Coalinga part? There's a section on
Yep.
here that shows how much, I think specifically that Coalinga has brought in through this.
Yes. There you go. And also on the website, that measurec.com, just measurec.com, any member of the public, you can go in and even look further because there's listings. Thank you to your city manager and staff for providing that information to us. But there's a number of investments that have happened in this community that have been very important. So.
And so it's what, 7.8 million we've brought in?
Yep.
And, you know, we've listened to Sean do quite the talk on the different projects, and we have been master leveragers. Sean has given a master class on leveraging these funds. I'd say that the 20 or so projects that he listed a couple weeks ago almost all dive into some of this type of funding. So when you look at the 7.8 million, it'd be interesting to see the trajectory of how far that actually goes when you bring in the state and federal funding into this. Being on COG, we get to see this stuff come through in real time, where a lot of that stuff comes in. And so I know that nobody likes taxes, and I know that nobody that I know trusts the state on how to spend taxes. This is your elected officials that are right there at the table that are making decisions on this at a local level. I don't see how it could get any better. I don't like taxes either, but I would love to see what, you know, the graphics of what happens if this goes away. Because I think the public needs to see what, you know, what it could look like without the crack slurry programs, without because, you know, we've done a really good job at keeping our streets able to be maintained by utilizing these programs. And if they go away, you know, a lot of people say, well, why are our roads in such bad shape? It's because of how much money it costs to fix them. They're so expensive to fix them. You know, you have the wages in California are very high. And a lot of people, you know, it takes a lot of people to get these projects done. And since we have so many environmental laws and things you have to go through, then it just makes it take that much longer and it makes it cost that much more. So I really appreciate you guys coming and letting us know about this and, you know, spreading the word. And if there's anything that we can do at the city level, I mean, because we are the beneficiaries of this money.
Well, there is actually something you can do for, and I'll work with Sean on this, but on August 4th, we would greatly appreciate if representatives from the Public Works Department and others, that we can have that conversation about what you did to leverage. I think the other part, which people, I think it would amaze people if they knew how much it actually costs to maintain, repair, or rehab a road. And I think the FCOG people are probably sick of me saying this, but it's like dentistry, right? If you go to the dentist all the time and you maintain it, you're good. If you don't go, then you wind up with a root canal. It costs like 5-10 times more. Roads are the same way. So the longer you put it off, the more expensive it is to fix it. And so without a steady stream of funding to make sure that you are maintaining those roads, or at least keeping them at the level they're at now, and I don't want to set an unrealistic expectation. It's not like this measure is renewed and all of a sudden everybody's roads are, there's a called pavement condition, 0 is dirt, 100 is a new road. It's not like they all of a sudden become 100. But it is essential to keep those things at least at the level they're at now, and possibly better if there's more funding. And as you all know, living out here, the way that we connect, you may only be in Coalinga, but most of you are going to go to Fresno or go other places at some point in your day, in your lives, if people are going to colleges or going to visit friends. Our connectivity in the county is not just one jurisdiction, it's everybody. And that's why this measure has been so important to build those connectors, 180, some of the stuff that was done in 41, other interchanges. We're not islands. We have to look at that as, a together thing, which is why the One Voice trip was so great going back to Washington.
Yeah, and I think I looked at the county level, I think it was 110 million, right, that the county had brought in, which they're also leveraging state and federal funds. So the exponential numbers built on that, and I know that people always complain about the areas right outside of Harris Ranch, which have been repaired multiple times, but they do go bad again because of, shifting earth and because of water and all kinds of different things, but the county is also leveraging these. So every time that we leave to go on a road somewhere, we're traveling on something that's been paid for, likely with Measure C money. And, being a director on the COG board of understanding how this works has really opened my eyes to this. I've voted against the roads thing with the state because I just didn't think they'd spend the money correctly. I still don't think they're spending the money correctly. They found ways to spend on anything but what they say they're going to. But this is not the case in this. I know because we're directly right there at the table, and we make sure that this stuff is being spent correctly. So I just want to thank you for coming. And then, did any of the other gentlemen want to speak on behalf?
So we have Terry and Robert, and you guys want to say a few words? Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council. Thank you for letting us have the opportunity to be out here. I was just going to comment on one of the things that you're talking about. Is one of the things we're looking at is looking at additional projects, and one of the projects that's on my radar screen as far as looking at this is the road that goes, I forget the name of it, that goes east here to I-5, Jane Avenue or something like that. That road would be a good connectivity, and so that would be one that it's been on my list since I started here, as looking at that as a road. And so those are things that we'd be looking at when we look at this new measure as far as projects are concerned. The other thing is that an idea about the measure is smaller jurisdictions based on population. That's how the distribution is determined, is maybe that formula needs to be adjusted a little bit. And so there's maybe a minimum that each of the cities get. And so it's not just, feast or famine there. And so those are just some things, some ideas that I have as far as looking at the rural cities. I live in Reedley, which is one of the rural cities in Fresno County, and I drive around and look at the road conditions in Reedley, and certainly they need repair just like other rural cities. And so again, thank you for your time and opportunity to be out here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Robert Phipps, Executive Director with Fresno Council of Governments. And just kind of to round out the comments on this issue, very much like with the One Voice trip, this is regional in scope, and the intent, just like with One Voice, is that the rising tide lifts all boats, and that is what we're shooting for here. As Terry mentioned, some of the specific ideas that have been considered to assist all of our agencies in bringing in and continuing transportation improvements throughout the region. Obviously, specifically in Coalinga, how can we best help Coalinga? And we hope that the residents will join us in August for our community workshop here specifically. The intent there is to join a chorus of voices about how the measure should be shaped, what it should look like, what its priorities should be, going, for now and also going well into the future. We think we have some idea of what that's going to look like in terms of road repair. We know that's a huge, huge issue for everybody. But beyond that, what are you thinking? And so we certainly hope that you'll take the opportunity to visit the website, to join our workshops, and to have your say in this process, because this is the people's measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it. And thanks to Chuck for sitting on the steering committee. We appreciate that. All right. That being said, we're going to move on to our citizens' comments. This section of the agenda allows members of the public to address the city council on any item within the jurisdiction of the council. Members of the public, when recognized by the mayor, should come forward to the lectern, identify themselves, and use the microphone. Comments are normally limited to 3 minutes. In accordance with state open meeting laws, no action will be taken by city council this evening, and all items will be referred to staff for follow-up and a report. Citizens' comments submitted in writing to the city clerk by 5 p.m. on the day of the city council meeting shall be distributed to the city council and included in the record. However, they will not be read. Do we have any public comments? Any citizens' comments? And I'll just note that if there is anything that people would like to state during the discussion time, that please fill out a comment card for the discussion specifically. So seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. We have 17 items because we have moved the presentation from code enforcement over. Is there anything that council would like to pull?
Yeah, item 5.6. And also informational for 5.12.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then, anyone else?
Just informational for 5:15.
Okay, and then I'd just like to pull for informational number 516. All right. We'll move on. We'll go to number 5.6.
Question on this right here is this a company that was working on the streets that's trying to add to their income or something?
Yeah, there's a discrepancy in about $84,000 in material costs that's still under, we're not in agreement on.
We'll just leave it at that then.
Yeah, so there's been a claim filed, so we're requesting rejecting the claim for damages.
Okay. Anyone else on 5.6? No? Okay. Move on to 5.12.
This one's more, I think a little bit more for you. About the opposing the Assembly Bill 942. You have more information?
Is your mic on?
Test. Is it possible you can kind of talk about it?
Sure. So I've actually, today met with the representative from PG&E, and we did kind of discuss some of this today. So this AB 942 has information in it basically talking about removing portions of NEM 2.0 that are, it would be basically taking the contract level, modifying it instead of having what you would think of would be your 20 years. And there has been movement at the CPUC And I don't want to directly state what has happened because I haven't watched it yet, but I did hear some encouraging information. And so what my hope is that we will just be opposed to this, to this AB 942, because I think that when you make a contract with someone such as the solar companies and PG&E and whoever sold those contracts, that people should be forced to stay in them and that they shouldn't be allowed to legislate out of them. And I do want to make note that this AB 942 is not coming from PG&E. This is not a PG&E-led driven thing, and this is something, an assembly bill. And so I just want to send us a letter out of support against AB 942. So that was just the goal in that. Any other questions, or was it just kind of like, just wanted to hear?
Just more of a quick informational.
Pure informational, okay. And we look forward to working with PG&E to understand, you know, what goes all into the rate structures and things of that nature. So, PG&E has been, outreaching to the city of Coalinga to find out, the kind of the things that we're having issues with, and to, they take our comments back, and we appreciate that. So, thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to item number 15. Award construction and authorize interim city manager to execute agreement with Transfueler for the construction of the 4,000-gallon aviation fuel trailer.
I just wanted some information. I've been getting, there's people that don't even know that there's an airport here. So I've been seeing what's going on with stuff like that, fuel.
Yeah, so the fueling system at the airport's been inoperable for several years. And we kind of experienced when we had the last air show event, but not only the air show event, but we typically rely on revenue from fuel sales at the airport. So we have a lot of general aviators and military and other folks that use the airport for aviation, and they need fuel when they come over here. And unfortunately, we don't have that to provide to them. And so we've been researching, trying to replace the existing fueling system. The current location that the fueling system is at is not conducive for the future use of the airport. And so this is basically a portable fuel trailer that allows us flexibility and location. We're looking at placing this near the existing wash rack at kind of the southeast area of the hangars. This will be used as a primary fueling service. It also comes with a card system so that people can actually self-serve the fuel. But this will help with generating fuel sales at the airport, as well as support future events, the air show that we have hopefully coming up here, we will have coming up here in September. And then hopefully down the road, if we do go after federal funding or other types of funding sources for a permanent, larger, low lead fuel tank, this could be used more for Jet A, so we can actually allow for jets to come in and utilize the fuel source as well, so we do have options for those folks. So this is kind of the first step in doing some of the improvements out at the airport, but staff will be doing the primary work to get the area ready for this. This is a self-contained trailer. It's about 8 to 10 weeks out once we put the order in. So we'll be putting the order in next week.
Thank you.
So it could be used to fill larger planes. We could tow it out to bigger planes when they come in with the jet. Is why one of the reasons we're going this direction.
Yes, it does have the ability to be moved. Once it's full, it takes certain vehicle to be able to move that.
Correct, but it's good for the future of the airport.
Yes, for sure, yes.
So I'm glad you said something, because I was going to ask, we have 2 of our council members, all of us absolutely are in favor, but 2 of them have been very spearheading the airport, and I was just going to make sure that both of those members are on board with this, and they think this is a good idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anyone else on this item right here? No? All right. So then we'll move on to 16, which is notice of completion for Pleasant Street reconstruction and sewer main. And I just always want to highlight when we have things like this that happen, because this is one of those important things to put out to the public is, hey, we did something positive, especially in an area that a lot of the citizens have been yearning for and believe that they have not gotten their fair share of funding in the city. And so I just wanted to appreciate that, and then I wanted to give Sean a second to talk about it.
Yeah, so this project started probably 2 years ago when we replaced the water line on Pleasant Street. It was very destructive to the road. It's an old road. It started falling apart when they were doing the trenching for the water line. And so we made the effort to immediately start planning a sewer replacement because we found that the sewer lines are really bad in that area, and then incorporated Measure C funds to fund the repaving. So there is a portion of sewer funds, water funds, and Measure C street funds to be able to fund this complete package to basically rehabilitate not only the infrastructure, but also the roadway. So we have a brand new roadway from Hackman all the way to Louisiana on East Pleasant. And just to add to this, I know this may not have been the question, but the notice of completion for this project is being filed, which means retention is paid. But even though there is a claim for damages, that doesn't mean the project's not complete. So it's just a discrepancy. So we do still proceed forward with a notice of completion, but we still deal with the claim after the fact, so.
Anyone else have questions on number 16? No? All right, I appreciate that. So that is the consent calendar. Could I entertain a motion for items number 1 through 17?
I'll make a motion. Is it 1 through 17 or 1 through 16? Because we moved one item. Or did you just add one item?
So I think we moved item the code
2.4.
enforcement to the consent calendar.
Yeah,
I just added one. Okay, I'll make,
technically, you don't have to vote on it because it's just it's an informational report, but
Right.
you guys like to add those to consent just to accept them, so it would be 17 items. Yeah.
okay, I'll make the motion to approve the consent calendar with the changes.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes. Consent calendar passes. Okay, moving on to item number 6, which is ordinance presentation, discussion, and potential action items. Discussion on establishing a timely process for issuing press releases and communication procedures.
Did you want me to introduce this, Mayor, and then you can, okay. So staff's just seeking direction from the council, and it may not be something directly that staff may have to undertake, but we're just seeking direction from the council as to handle submitting press releases that are requested from individual council members. And these may not be directly related to general, police press releases or funding resources that we've received. These may be more from and the next item is kind of collective with this request, but things that may be more related to advocacy or, quasi-political in nature, opinion-based, something where the city maintains apolitical, but yet a council member or the council as a whole may have a stand on something. And so we're just kind of getting direction. I think the mayor would like to get direction as well, to find out how can you guys effectively communicate to the public or stakeholders, other electeds, in terms of these types of issues that come up that you may strongly feel against or for. So, Mayor, if you want to
I was
add on
gonna,
that, or maybe
yeah, I was
leave it
gonna
to
let
city
the
attorney?
city
Okay.
attorney jump in on this real quick.
Yeah, there's just a timeliness issue, right? Typically, the council wants to say something when an issue comes up, and sometimes, that could be 2, sometimes it could be 3 weeks, just depending on how many weeks we have in the month, before we come back and get approval. And by that time, you may not even want to say anything at that point. But there's a couple options. Number one, if council feels like they want to say something on a topic, we just wait until the next council meeting. That's one option. But like I said, that could be, as short as 3 days or the weekend, or it could be 3 weeks. The other option is calling a special meeting and bringing you guys back, and whatever the topic is, having you guys just essentially review that, which only takes 24 hours notice. But you would essentially be doing that every time. And then the third option is to come up with some kind of policy where, what I would probably recommend is something like the council, authorizing the mayor and the vice mayor to kind of jointly, if there's an issue that comes up, to jointly talk about it, and if they feel comfortable putting the city's name on it, to craft something up and get it out without additional approval. And so if that's something that the council's, it just kind of depends, like that's a spectrum, right? So if the council's okay with the last thing, then really Sean and I would work together, bring you back some options. What does that look like? And you guys can decide. If you guys decide tonight, no, we either want to do the special meeting route or just wait, then we don't really have to do anything. But if the council wants us to craft some policy, that's what we're really looking for direction on.
So, the reason I brought this up was because I really wanted to address the catch and release that happened recently. It's infuriating. It is absolutely infuriating to watch this stuff happen in our local community, and it needs to stop. And no matter how much the private phone calls to the DA, how many private phone calls to different officials, it seems that private phone calls are being overlooked. And it seems like news media works really well to make these people listen. And so my goal was to send out a press release basically stating that this is, Trump had just came out 2 or 3 days before this and said that he had ended catch and release. And then on the press release that we got, it was noted that federal overcrowding law actually released this person. And so I wanted to address this directly. And so I had asked one other council person to look over it. And it was brought to my attention that this should be something that we should be unified on. It shouldn't just come from myself. Now, looking at how other councils operate, looking at how other cities operate, the mayor routinely releases stuff left and right. Now, that also comes with backlash too, because not everything the mayor releases does the rest of the council agree with. A lot of times, look in Fresno where, we have Mayor Dyer releasing something and some of the council doesn't agree with that. And so the idea is to create a pathway for us to be united in the types of releases that we send out, which I think is very advantageous to the city to be able to do that, so that it's not just one person out there saying it, but it does need to come from an elected official route rather than from an entity route. One, ways of liability, and two, because of the fact that as we learned in One Voice, they like to listen to elected officials, and when it comes from a city, it's basically just like it's not really, a personal thing. It's more like, hey, a city entity, which we absolutely would love the city to sign on board too. So and that's why this was brought forward, so that we could come up with a way to release information, and that would. We'll probably have to talk more in depth about exactly how this would work, because I personally would like to see in item number 3 that he had said, where basically like, hey, we come up with some kind of system to where mayor and vice mayor agree on something, but I'd also like there to be key issues that the council could agree upon, that we would that as a whole that we support. We're not in favor of different things like, when they try and raise taxes on us as a whole, when they try and take away the benefits of rooftop solar, when they a lot of these things come in and they require, and like ABC 30 ran a story on the issue. I believe it was ABC 30 on the story on the issue with the guy that was released. It would have been perfect to bam, hit it right there, and then they would have released another story, but we didn't have that opportunity. And yes, probably could have called a special meeting and brought everyone back in, but looking at the staff time, looking at the time of the council and of that nature, I just think it'd be better to come up with a policy, and that policy could be looked at annually, so that we wouldn't be stuck with it. That way, if we want to redo something, and it actually could be changed at any point in time if we find out it's not working. But I want us as a council to be united, because I think that's what the council wants, and I agree with that. And so, I'm open for any ideas from anybody else, but this is kind of what we had, just some ideas that were thrown around with the city attorney. So I'll open this up for the council if anyone has any questions or comments or ideas.
I think it's a good idea. I think we need to get the police department involved, since they're also
banging their heads against the wall. They're arresting people and they get let go. I just saw a news report about LA going to start arresting people for small crimes because their citizens are sick of it. But when the state's closing prisons, stating that there's no reason to have them because we don't have enough inmates, and yet they continue to turn the people loose because there's no room to put them, it doesn't make any sense. It's somebody's not telling the truth. So, you know, we have all these officers that are doing a great job, and like I said, they beat their head against the wall every day as well. When you're arresting the same people for doing crimes and they don't get to stay in jail, the regular citizens are not happy with it. So yeah, we need to fix this, and we need to be able to speak out. But like I said, I would like them involved with the rebuttals on this, even if it's, you know, down the road. You know, if it's a month down the road and they hear, hey, this criminal that we arrested for something that they should be spending time was released on a technicality that has nothing to do with the community or them, it's a state or federal thing, people need to know that they're getting released. They need to know about the waste in our government.
I agree. And in the further item that you guys are gonna see in 6.2, I did actually cite the police report. That was the sightedness of it, and I would absolutely agree with you that I want to give you know, the police the ability to be onto that as well. And I think that those type of things, they don't even need to come to us. They can actually, they could be approved to be solicited as they write the report. It's just that, like I was explaining earlier, the news agencies, they see this stuff. They aren't gonna go to the electeds and send them out to them. And that's where it's gonna fall on us to make sure that we get that. Cause, you know, ABC 30 did, or whoever it was, I keep citing them, maybe that's not them, but whoever put this article out, they did directly talk about the police report and stuff of that nature. So I agree with you, it's important that we include the city at the same time. And I think an approach of what the city did and then led in by us afterwards makes perfect sense, because the initial led by the police department is what got put on the news. And then I was just trying to let us follow up on that so that we could, like, 1-2 punch. Like, here's the police report and here's the council right behind them in support of what they're doing. And I'd like to see more of that style where, you know, the police puts out their information, and then if we see, like, hey, this is something that hasn't been handled at the state level or at the federal level, then we can reinforce that. And that way that the city is somewhat taking the lead on that, even because we're utilizing their press for the benefit of moving the items forward.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think there needs to be a more efficient communication methods. I kind of lean towards the special meeting more so it can be discussed, but I'm open to a policy if we can look at something that works for everyone.
I myself, I mean, I'm with you guys. I'm infuriated with this. To the public, when they sit there and they're saying what our police officers doing, that's what they're doing, catching these criminals, but yet they're getting released. Their hard work goes out there, you know, training all these young officers and everything to keep our community safe, and this is what happens. It's, you know, the weather's getting better where people are going, walking, using our trails, and if, I mean, they're against the wall. And it's really sad and kind of infuriating for me to see my community that, you know, the chief, the sergeant, everybody has worked hard to get back this community to a safe purpose, and we're doing the moonwalk. We're going backwards. And I mean, I recognize you guys, and I thank you guys for your hard work, and I know right now it's infuriating that they're releasing these people, and but don't give up. I mean, we're supporting you guys, and we'll try to do our best that we can. But, you know, to the public, this is important. The public has to step up too. This is where the public has to step up. We can't let these guys be running around like this. And there should be punishments for the people that are housing them. That's another thing. I think one time we had talked about, if you're housing a criminal like that, maybe there should be an ordinance that you should be liable to that too. Because not only that criminal is doing this to the community, but yet you're supporting that. So, thank you guys for everything you guys are doing. And yes, we should, workshop would be good.
So I'd just like to point out that there's advantages and disadvantages to all of these different things, right? So like something that comes out from us or from one person has a different impact than if it comes out at an agendized special meeting. I remember that last time that we sent out something agendized at a special meeting, it cost us our CARES Act money. And that was an interesting one. And so a rogue council person or a rogue mayor has a different effect than a city that's taken a formal action. And I'm here to say I would support any of these types of ideas. We just need to move forward with being able to engage. Maybe we could have the city attorney come back with some options for us, and that he could look into the legalities of these different actions. That way that we would have a menu to choose from, and that he could tell us the positives and negatives of each of these. That way we could understand them, and maybe we could even have, if it's something for this, we do it this way. If it's doing something for this, we do it a different way. That way we can limit liability on the city, and at the same time, we're able to get the information out. And then in certain instances, hey, and by the way, before I even sent this to a council person, I did send it to the city attorney to look over, just to make sure that this wasn't gonna be something that, but yeah, those are all things that go into this, and I just want to make sure that we don't do anything that's going to harm us down the road, but at the same time, we're able to advocate. So maybe if you guys be in favor of allowing him to go and make us a menu of items.
Yeah, so we can put together, I'll work with Mario on a policy, and we can look at what that process would look like. And then also any other alternatives. I think we could still always have the option of a special meeting. That's always an
Yeah,
option.
for sure.
If you got time. But if it's one of those immediate items that you really want to get out, I think we can work through a policy. Then the council can kind of massage it a little bit in terms of what you guys would want to approve, whether it be the mayor and the mayor pro tem, agreeing to something to post. Maybe it goes and communicates to the council, and then they agree or disagree with that. So we'll go ahead and put something
And
together.
can you make sure that you include the different why, don't just give us the menu items, tell us why they work and why that would be more important than another one in a certain situation. And, that way that we can fully understand. And, I think maybe there should be, and this is just my idea on this, maybe there should be an open session item with this, and maybe there should also be a closed session item with this, because this is going to be discussing liability toward the city and what implications that would have. And I think that discussing part of it privately would probably be in the best interest of the city. Am I correct on this?
Yeah, I think part of what I was thinking is, when we come back to you, we'll have a list of topics, because, I think everybody's general concern is, no offense to the current mayor, but, you don't want that person saying something completely off the wall or something, right? And so you have to have a mechanism and some guidelines of what topics they should even not be talking about, right? So like, for example, the closed session tonight, like, there shouldn't be a press release on that from the mayor.
Right.
That should just steer clear of that. But we can have some topics in there and some ability for the council to kind of raise their hand before something like that goes out and say, hey, this is something that might be controversial, so we should all talk about it together first, or something like that.
Sure.
So I'll certainly put that in there.
Okay. Is everyone okay with that? We okay with moving that forward like that? Okay. All right, and then moving on to item number 6.2, council approval of press release related to catch and release concerns requested by the mayor. I think it's pretty I mean, everyone has it in front of them.
Yeah, I've included a copy of the press release, and so it's just a matter of the council giving direction to the mayor to send it.
If everyone's okay with it, I'd love us to hand sign it. That way that we could have it hand signed and sent to and delivered to those. And if anyone has any things they'd love to change in there, completely open to the change as well. But I would just like to have us make that impact.
I've read it and I agree, and I will sign it.
So do we need a motion, or we just all agree?
Make a motion that'll be our signature.
I think it's an,
You can sign it however you want, but
it is an action
I
item.
It is an
say, I
action
say we
item.
make a motion to approve it as it's read, and each council sign it.
I second it.
Been moved and seconded.
Print it, have them come and sign it.
All in favor?
Does that work?
Aye. All opposed?
So you just
Done.
collect the signatures?
That moves forward.
I mean,
All right.
sign it,
Now we're gonna move on to the fun stuff. This is where sometimes if we had an audience, they would hit the door. But this is actually the really important stuff, which is council received presentation of the fiscal year 2026 citywide budget and further direct staff to submit all budget documents for adoption at the June 18th city council meeting. Interim city manager Sean Brewer. And we should all have a nice packet that was prepared in front of us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight is kind of a culmination of past discussions about the budget and a lot of work on behalf of staff. I want to give a lot of credit to all staff who have been involved in this newer process of processing the budgets for the upcoming fiscal year. And so with tonight, we wanted to kind of address, from the previous communications we've had, is under the direction of the council, we're submitting a one-time projects purchases for approval at the budget hearing. So we looked at the budget from a perspective of what revenues we have coming in and what are our kind of our bare bones, what's our basic operating budget. And then we've included a lot of the one-time projects. And the one-time projects are projects that we want to be able to utilize some of the reoccurring revenues, new revenues, which are transfers in from other funds, as well as the fund balance that we've talked about a little bit in terms of the money that's basically has carried over in previous fiscal years that is basically our starting fund as we begin the fiscal year. And so the resources of all the one-time projects are outlined in the expenditure table that we'll talk about. And the goal is to adopt a legally balanced budget. So Section 29009 of the California Government Code requires that a county or city budget be legally balanced at the time of adoption. We know that the Code of Conduct requires and encourages the council to strive for a balanced budget. And so with that, because we are including a lot of some one-time transfer ins for these one-time projects, current operating money as well as the fund balance, this will be a legally balanced budget. And when we look at it and when we actually publish the budget, it does have it is structurally sound as well when it comes to the revenues for fiscal year 26 and the expenditures for 2026 without the one-time projects. So it's basically focused on compliance with the legal budget adoption rules, and staff recommends, and then we're also going to be talking about setting a 90-day fund balance policy for the general fund's fund balance. So we already have a 90-day policy in the reserve fund. We're actually looking at putting a 90-day fund policy on the actual fund balance of the general fund as well. And this thing is funky. There we go. So I'm just going to highlight some items. One thing to take away from this process is that the city is in very good shape right now. It seems we have a very good positive outcome for the general fund, but also for our other funds as well, from our enterprise funds, our special grant funds. But what I want to highlight in this particular slide is the general fund's reserve starting and ending fund balance. The expenditure that's coming out of the general fund reserve is $1.6 million, and I'll explain a little bit where that $1.6 million represents the excess of the 90 days that's our current policy for the reserve. So that's going to put us, once we move that 1.6 million, that will move into the general fund, and that's going to help support a tremendous amount of the one-time projects that we've identified. And I'm going to highlight some of these one-time projects for you guys, so you guys kind of have an idea of what those projects, and not all of them are projects. They're also there's purchases to an extent. And then with the general fund, you'll see our beginning fund balance of the general fund is we're estimated to start with $5.6 million. With revenue for that current year, which includes money coming in, not necessarily just reoccurring revenue, but it also includes one-time revenues of $14,376,000 and an expenditure of $16,252. Sometimes people look at that and go, wait a minute, that's more than what you're bringing in. But what we're doing is we're using some of the fund balance, and as you can see, the fund balance will still be at $3.8 million at the end of the year. So when you look at the 2.8 in reserve plus the 3.8 in the general fund, we're sufficiently healthy moving forward, even with expending $2 million roughly beyond what's actually expected to come in as revenue. However, it is available, and it is what we call a legally balanced budget, because it is using other sources of revenue, because we're not inherently deficit spending, because the revenue's coming in, and we'll show in a few slides what the structural budget looks like. So if we didn't do any of these one-time purchases, none of the one-time projects, and said we need to just keep the lights on and keep things going, make sure people get paid, and that we provide the essential services, we have a good surplus that's available to the city. And so we will have a surplus in the structural budget.
Can we, just over this section right here, can we address if there's any
Sure,
questions?
yeah, anytime you have questions, please let me know.
Because I want to make sure that we're all on board with this exact part right here. Because this part is the real meat and potatoes for the general fund, for us and the public to understand why this technically would equal deficit spending, but we are actually spending down a fund balance. Because I've been all over this, trying to figure it out, rack my head, like, we don't want to show deficit spending, but we have this fund balance of 5.6. That's money that was accumulated over how many years?
Probably at least 4 or 5 years, you think, Mai? Yeah.
Can you give just a brief explanation of why we have that money? Because I'm sure some people would like to know, why do we have that money?
Yes, so the fund balance is it's almost like a savings account over a period of time where funds starts to build, where you have a spending plan of a revenue, like, for example, $5 million, and you have an expenditure that you may only spend for, revenue $5 million, and you only spend an expenditure of $4 million. Therefore, now you have a $1 million that you roll over to the next fiscal year. And as these start to accumulate over the years, it starts to build. So with a legally balanced budget, we would be able to pull from there without us coming back to council every single time to ask for a budget amendment.
So is it fair to say that a lot of this money was built up due to staff positions that we were unable to fill?
Not so much staff positions, but I think more so that some of our projects were not completed, or we did not pursue those projects. But I think it is a combination of both, but I think it's just not staffing.
So a combination of staffing and projects that weren't done.
Yes.
So do we have a plan? Because obviously we don't want to constantly have this large of a fund balance that we're constantly drawing fund. And I know that the one-time projects that we're working on are going to dramatically take this down, and we're going to have a 90-day policy that will allow us some flexibility. But do we have a plan to where we're not going to end up in this situation again, to where we can actually present budgets that are going to be both legally balanced and on paper, that we won't have people wondering why it is that when it looks like this, that we're going negative spending, even though we're just spending down a fund balance?
Right. So the city manager does have a plan for staff, and we are going to do our best to do to complete those projects. But as we know, not every project would be completed timely based on material, based on time, et cetera. And so we will do our best to go with that plan, yes.
So will we be putting line items in for the items and then encumbrances for how much those are? That way that we can understand on a budget looking forward that this is encumbered money. That way that we know that, hey, this is how much each of these one-time projects was slotted to spend, and this is how much we have spent in that project. That way we would know that, hey, completing this project down the line is going to be something that's doable. And because, like you had mentioned, a lot of this money probably came from projects that council's probably approved, and they never got done. And so then that money, you know, accumulated into this, which, as a citizen playing the other hat, I look at it like this is money that we've actually lost our buying power on. Because in the amount of time of inflation from the time that we earned this to the time now, things cost a lot more, and it would have been a better idea to get bang for the buck when we had the money, rather than to now try and spend it based on the inflation from when this happened.
Yes, I do
And that's
agree.
definitely our approach. A perfect example is there's been the discussion about the outdoor food court project. We're only estimating in this budget $100,000 of expenditures for that project because we know we can't complete the project in the next fiscal year. So we want to get the engineering ready, get the project ready, get cost estimates. So when we do go to the next fiscal year budget in '27, that we'll be able to identify what the cost is going to be associated with that project to build it out. And then it may be a combination of fund balance or operating and be able to cover some of it through the operating budget as well, depending on what that operating budget looks like. And so, but our plan, and I use the word one-time projects, but we've been starting to put / purchases because a lot of these items, and I know I've had some conversations with some of you, is my goal is that I want to prepare and produce and present purchases and projects that we feel we can finish in this fiscal year. And what's unique about this with this list is this basically replicates the projects that were identified in the strategic planning effort. And so about 99% of them, all but I think one, is included in this budget. And so, and I'm going to go through and highlight some of these projects, but I did cross-reference my project list that I sent to you guys on the update from the strategic planning to what's in the budget. And one way or another, these projects are moving forward or they're being completed with this budget.
So will we have a line item in the budget for these items so that we'll be able to track them and see them as they pan out? Because like technically a lot of these bigger projects should actually be capital projects. And just spending it like this is, I think, how, not what you guys say, but our approach in the past has got us, in my opinion, to where we're at now. And we need to have more control over that, and we need to have more, like, this didn't just come out of nowhere. This came from like years, and I'm not saying that council, with us saying, hey, don't spend money mid-year, that we haven't aided into this. But I'm just saying, moving forward, like I want to see on a budget where it says line item, we're going to spend this much money on this, we're going to spend this much money on that, how much we have encumbered for that project and how much we actually spent. That way that we'll know that this project's moving forward and that money isn't just going to be forgotten and like, hey, 5 years from now, we're going to say, okay, well, we have another 4 million and why do we have this? You know, because I think that's something that we're trying to get away from is in understanding. And also I'd like to see where, you know, we find out if we have staffing levels that we can't fill, that we're not going to budget for 25 positions if we can only fill 20. Because that's 5 positions times, you know, 150,000 each in certain service levels. That's, you know, $500,000 upwards to $1 million. And if you do that for multiple years, this is the situation you get in. And then, so I'd like to see more controls on the budget, you know, whether it be line item, whether it be capital funds. You guys have come up with a great plan. I've had in-depth conversations, but this is a lot for the public's benefit that's listening to understand this, because when we put it out on paper, you know, obviously, as I've always been told, well, council approved this. So I want the public to be very aware of what's going on. And I want us to have tighter controls so that, you know, Sean and Maya both suggested some things moving forward that may or may not be ready to put in place to like kind of fully have more control over this budget. So that being said, are we gonna have some line items so we can see this stuff?
Yes, so in your packet, you actually do have it with the one-time projects or purchases. It does have the account number there that will tell you exactly where these projects or one-time purchases will come from. We do not track each individual in its own account. That would be a ginormous chart of accounts. So it is grouped within each of those accounts. And with the new strategy that we have with the budget, we did ask the department heads, and they've been very supportive in this new strategy where they are providing us the details of the things that they are requesting for. So we are able to track it that way.
So will there be an account that we can look at that will have all the one-time projects in it? Is there at least an account that has all of those? Is there an account number that has all of those projects listed in it?
No, they're in their own respective accounts because of it gets
I
a
think
bit
what
too
we'll be able to
technical,
do
but
is the way that you'll see the expenditures, and we have this as a master list that we're gonna be monitoring. So like, for instance, like PD, you have building repairs and maintenance. That's one account number that we pull, that we do multiple things out of. But there'll be multiple items like the police department flooring and some of the sewer maintenance that has to be done at the police department. When those are done, you're gonna see those purchases, and where you're gonna see those is on the check register. So you'll see those as we're billing those out. But my plan is to be able to update the council on, and I've recently actually sent out memos to staff that we're gonna monitor all these projects. And we're gonna update the council. I'm gonna be getting progress reports monthly on these projects to ensure their completion. And so we're gonna be doing that, as well as providing updates to the council on these projects. So we want to ensure that these are done. And you can see from the project list and the purchase list, we have things as small as a label maker, all the way to patrol vehicles or our new fire engine. So there are, some are considered, in terms of projects, there's a few. Most of them are purchases. And so we're going to continue to update this, and as these occur, we'll make sure that these are being addressed.
Okay. Well, because I look at, like, for instance, if I just look at the Smeel fire engine for 1.2 million, right? Obviously, you guys are going to come back and say, hey, we purchased the fire engine, right? But then if I look at some of these smaller costs, you know, I'm not trying to look through, have to utilize the check register to pull these out. Capital outlay funds are a perfect scenario for these type of deals. Where you have a capital outlay fund and you're spending out a capital outlay, that way that you can see where all this stuff comes from, and that way you can track that one fund. And so by having them all spread out like this, I'm just saying from an elected standpoint and from the point of the public, it is not easy to follow. And I see that the reason why we haven't been able to follow this in the past and why we've got 5.4 or whatever it is in that, and I don't want to end up in this situation again because, you know, I just don't want to approve deficit spending, even though it says that it's legally, you know, the legally term is one thing, but it's taking the absolute definition of deficit spending, and I know because I'm taking government finance class as we speak, is you are spending more than your revenues. And so anytime that's the case, we're deficit spending. And so what you're saying is structurally we're not doing that, correct? But because we have a healthy fund balance, we're building down that fund balance. Which is, am I correct in this?
yes, you're correct.
I just want to make sure that because I'm saying a lot of this stuff, we've already had conversations on this, and I'm on board with your guys' plan. I'm just saying a lot of this for the public, because when people come back and ask me, why is this the way it is, I want to be able to say, hey, this is what we said in public. You can go back and watch the video. That way everyone is aware.
So speaking to what you were saying about projects not being completed and then, and growing in cost, the splash pad is a good example of that. Where it started out somewhere around 500,000, and now we're at 1.7 million. So that's what we want to avoid, I think, in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this first part? I know that I took a lot of time, and I apologize for that, but I just want to make sure since, you know, No, we'll be good. This was the most important part to me to discuss on because I just wanted to make sure everyone knew why we were doing this strategy on this type of budget, and I want to make sure we're all aware. And I think most of us have had meetings with you, and you've explained that. So now I will be quiet and I'll let you guys roll through it.
So I'll kind of get through some of these other ones. But these are basically all the funds, the different funds we have. So you'll see different ended projected fund balances. A lot of times when you see the negatives, just to highlight, a lot of times that's accumulated funds over time, especially like special grants funds, where you're gonna see that we may get $400,000 a year in SB1 funds, and then one year we'll do a project for $1 million. Well, we're only gonna get 400,000 from the state in that one particular year. So you're gonna show that you're negatively spending because of the fact that you're doing that. And we've done that, you've seen that a lot with the enterprise funds, and you'll see that as we look at different funds, that's kind of what you see. A lot of times you see that in the street funds. You'll see Measure C, the street maintenance, ADA flex funds, those types of accounts where you actually see. Now the CDBG at the bottom, that's another one. Those are usually grants, so you're waiting on reimbursement sometimes after your expenditures. And then we talk about the enterprise funds, water, gas, and sewer. You can see actually all of our, and just to highlight, 'cause we do look at the enterprise funds as well, is that the enterprise funds are healthy. They're doing well right now. They're performing well. You know, the water enterprise is doing well. When we have good water years, we're able to sell the excess water. And as approved tonight, you know, we approved almost $400,000 in additional revenue to the water fund for excess water sales that we're not gonna use. And so between water and sewer, they're healthy. Gas, just to highlight, you know, the fund balance is dwindling a little bit in the gas fund. However, in talking with Dan, our consultant, I think we're continuing to watch the gas market. We feel that we should and hopefully be able to get through this winter, and then we'll be continuing to reanalyze, look at what it'll look like next year in terms of where this goes based on the gas prices. If wholesale prices drop, then the city has some additional funding that can help build that back up. So we'll continue to monitor that. We have the gas policy in place that we'll be able to come back on, and we'll report back, I think sometime probably in July or August, I think. Few things I wanted to highlight. These are from the previous discussion. One of the things is the increase of the city's travel and training budget. We have increased that travel and training budget for all council members. This is reflective not only of future One Voice trips, but also any other activities such as team building and other things that can be charged out of these accounts. And then also one of the comments that were made at the last meeting was the increase and ensure that we have appropriate training for our staff. This budget actually reflects the 30% increase in training opportunities for our staff in this particular budget from 2025. A couple items that we would like to discuss, and we need feedback from the council before we finish the final budget, is one is there was a comment about the Chamber of Commerce stipend. I know that the city provided a stipend to the chamber when we received ARPA funds. I think it's been quite a few years. I don't remember the last time that that the chamber received a stipend from the city with the use of general funding, but the ARPA funds were what funded the chamber stipends in the previous round. So I just wanted we need to get some direction from the council on how you would like to do that. If you were looking to provide a stipend, what source or what are you looking for out of the stipend? And then what kind of maybe reporting or feedback do you need back from the chamber or in terms of what that money was spent on? The other one is the increase to the planning commission and treasurer, well, their stipends essentially because they receive by meeting. So these are two items that we pretty much need feedback from the council on, then we can go ahead and finalize when it comes to the budget. So if you guys want to discuss that a little bit, find out kind of what works for you guys, if you'd like to
I'll
proceed
open this
with
up for the council.
I'm unaware why the original Chamber of Commerce stipend was even started. What was that?
So when we received the ARPA funds, probably 3-4 years ago, 2021. I think it was a $15,000 stipend per year, and then I think the council made a decision to provide all $45,000 up front, all at once. I'm not sure exactly what the purpose. I think it may have had to do with the relocation of the Derby, but I'm not sure if there was anything else tied to that. That's kind of before my time.
So, it is been past practice for cities to give stipends to the Chamber of Commerce because the chamber advocates for the city in all kinds of different ways with their businesses, with all kinds of different revenues. The city of Hanford's a primary example where they have given money to Main Street, and then they gave money to their chamber, and then they decided to do some kind of like double tax downtown, and so the Main Street actually benefits from that tax. I don't think that would go well in Coalinga, nor do I think that it should be something that we should do, but I do think a stipend to help our chamber grow, and not only the chamber, but I think that we should agree to make a deal with the newspaper. Part of our strategic planning was that maybe we would work with the newspaper. I think maybe just an idea off the top of my head would be like a monthly spot in the paper to where the city can give an update that's controlled by the city. So we're buying that section of the paper per month, and we would pay monthly on that, and that way that the city could control what goes in there. If there's, the city manager could reach out to council for quotes from council, and then we could put them in there for things, and it'd be vetted by the city manager. And if we have a economic development person, that person could be involved in that as well. But I'd like to see something moving forward, on this same line, not directly a stipend, but a deal that we could make with the paper. But the chamber thing, I am real in favor of making sure that our chamber, right now, we have, it's almost entirely volunteers. And we have one person paid through the chamber, and he could really use some help. And I know that he has tried his best individually and at a community level to, do whatever he can to help the city. And so I would just like us to help him and help their organization, but also I would like some kind of reporting back on, what happened, so could this money support new businesses that opened up to have a ribbon cutting like it used to? Could this have, some effect on a portion of their website that they control, like they update their website and they have all the community directory on there? Could it benefit for that? So we need to have something that we can look at and say, hey, this is beneficial to the city, obviously, but I would think that, my personal opinion, I'm in favor of the chamber getting a stipend, and then also working on something with the newspaper to have a monthly corner in the newspaper. So, in the past, the last time we gave him a stipend, it was $15,000, and I believe that we gave it to him years in advance. And the reason for that was that we were hoping to move the Derby to a different location, and that ultimately fell through. And a lot of the funds, well, not all, but a lot of the funds did get in planning of that, and unfortunately, some other decisions at the chamber level that didn't pan out. So, and the chambers went through significant changes as well. And so I just want, if we can, if people are on board with helping them with a stipend, I think it'd be a great idea. If not, I can understand why not.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be money well spent. Scott does a lot for businesses and the city. My only question is, how do you arrive at an amount? What is there a going rate or a percentage?
I don't know. I can look and see what other cities may be paying in a stipend and kind of maybe report back, and then we can maybe make a recommendation in the budget, because our plan in June is to adopt the budget. I think we have flexibility as we go through, a little bit more of the budget process. You'll see that we have some flexibility in being able to provide a stipend if that's what the council wants. And based on prior amounts, I think that's not going to be, it's going to cause any, issue with the budget. So we can bring it back, make a recommendation, and then highlight that when it's approved. And then if the council so chooses, we can go that direction.
I think there definitely needs to be a partnership, and how that is worked out, yes, definitely needs to have some different options. So, yeah, if you could look into that. And the idea of buying an ad with the paper, I don't like being a partner as a government agency with a news outlet, but buying ad space is perfectly fine. I don't think any government agency should be tied to a news outlet like so many of them are right now. But, you know, buying ad space would be,
Yeah, I'll confirm what the cost would be for page ad space, and then we can go ahead and we'll make sure it's incorporated into the budget.
And then with planning commission and the treasurer's salary, could you also do research on that and find out what the going rate is in some of the cities around us, so that we can understand that as well?
Yeah,
That way we aren't just willy-nilly pulling stuff out.
apologize, I didn't think
No, you're
about
good.
doing that, but.
Yeah, no, you're good. Are we all okay with them doing that? Yeah? Okay.
Okay, I'll continue. So we'll do a quick revenue summary. So total revenue, it's citywide is $61 million. That includes all of our funds. Total new revenue for all funds is $4.483 million. This is new revenue. So new investment. So this is the first one is the new investment interest earned. This is the current RFP that we have out for being able to invest our pool cash. And the estimates that we've been receiving is about $1.3 million when we invest those funds. That's not, and it's representative of about $300,000 roughly into the general fund, because it's all based on where that pooled cash comes from. So it's about 300,000 of that is part of a new revenue to the general fund. The rest of it is kind of mingled with other, a lot of probably our bigger funds like our enterprise funds. And then we have the transfers in from other funds. That's the $2.35 million. That's the GEMT transfer from the IGT fund. And then we also have the $1.6 million that's coming from the reserve fund that's coming into the general fund as new revenue for this year. The other revenues, which is the $833,000, that's representative of like grant reimbursements. There's the housing successor purchase of the old Cedar property. That's basically kind of paying the city back for the city purchasing the property that's at 5th and Cedar, where we were prior to the area we were going to be at for the splash pad. So the housing successor was going to go that direction and purchase that property, and then essentially maybe open us up for a location for some ADUs. And then the reoccurring revenue, that's kind of the revenue that we see each year, and it's about $57 million for all funds. Total revenue for the general fund is $11.6 million. But I wanted to highlight a couple things in terms of what we've seen in this budget. Revenue includes a sales tax decrease by 7% and a Measure J decrease by 6%. This is primarily due to the reduction in fuel costs. Fuel is a primary driver, one of the primary drivers of our sales tax. And so when we do see fuel prices drop, the taxes drop, or the tax on that fuel, and that's just the sales tax, not all the other taxes the state collects. We see those drop. So this budget does include a reduction, a conservative approach to the sales tax. And then we look at the revenues for the enterprise funds, $27 million for the cumulatively through the enterprise funds, and then all other funds about $18 million. This kind of goes based on percent change, and it looks like this might be a cutoff just a little bit. But I just like to highlight some of the large increases. So you see a large 100% increase in sewer, and you will also see a big increase in water of 30%. Those are due to the revenue that we'll receive from the solar projects that we're doing at the water and the wastewater plants. So obviously when we request reimbursement from the bond proceeds, that comes in as revenue to those funds, so which hence increases those funds when you see that there. Other ones are pretty relatively on point. Revenue for IGT, you see, has gone up a little bit, and that's really attributed to the GEMT reimbursements that we're going to be seeing that weren't budgeted in the prior year. Sometimes you see things that go from $200 to $4,000. You see a huge increase, kind of like the chief's police department stats. Sometimes when you get one assault going from 2 to 1 or 2 to 3, it's a 33% increase in crime. So you'll see on here some of these smaller funds, a little bit of the increased dollar amount different from the percentage. Also, you'll see on the grant side, that's sometimes where you see revenues down. Sometimes you just we're not going to receive as much reimbursement in one given year than another. and we're kind of looking at some of these other accounts as well. Nothing really concerning when we're looking at this budget in terms of revenue. Revenues seem to be good. They're increasing. And and when we present at the June 18th meeting, we're going to be talking about our ambulance billing, and that's going to be a positive in terms of revenue in the future as well. As we move on to expenditures, total expenditures for this budget, all expenditures, $68 million. One-time projects for all funds is $31 million. General fund reserve, that's the transfer in of 1.6500. The general fund expenditures of 5.138. When we look at different expenditures, these are the transfers in to the general fund. So this is kind of where we talked about on the first page, is we have the expenditures of the general fund reserve of 1.6 coming out into the general fund. The expenditures funded by excess reoccurring revenue, $572,000. This is representative of the bare bones structural budget. So this is the surplus in the structural budget, not including any of these one-time purchases. So some of these one-time purchases, they're going to be absorbed in that 572 as well. Total expenditure funded from the IGT is 720. It was higher, I think, when we talked last. However, we do have the ambulances that are being paid out directly out of the IGT fund, so we're only moving money from GEMT that's necessary to cover the cost for the additional portion of the engine. And then we have the total expenditure based on this budget would be $2.2 million out of the fund balance. Enterprise funds, expenditures of $10 million total, and all other funds $13 million. Then we'll talk about the new positions. The new positions are included in the expenditure budget, and those new positions that we're going to talk about are approximately $256,000 for those projects. For those positions. In terms of operating and personnel expenditures, for the general fund, the total $11 million, total operating expenditure $3.5 million, and the total personnel expenditure $7.5 million. So that's kind of a breakdown of those general fund expenditures. Then you can see that with the enterprise funds, where our expenditures are, where our personnel expenses. It looks flipped in the enterprise funds, and a lot of that's because we have large capital expenditures in the enterprise funds. And those total operating expenditures in the general fund are our base expenditures, not including all of the one-time projects. That's correct, right, Mai? Okay. And then all other funds, $7 million. So these are the new positions. As part of our strategic planning, we talked about looking at a type of position that can engage and build more positive relationships with the community and city through strategic communication and community involvement with an emphasis on economic development. And so we are looking at a public outreach coordinator position with emphasis on economic development. This project, these job descriptions will be coming to the council at the budget adoption meeting for approval. So we're able to advertise these positions once the budget's adopted. We also have the business analyst position, which is to identify business needs and recommend data-driven solutions to improve processes and implement new business needs. This would be somebody that would be housed in the finance department to really help bring everything together from a business standpoint, provide more continuity among the utility billing, accounting division, and getting information out to the public and to our public outreach coordinator to make sure that that information is being conveyed to our community. Lube technician, this was talked about, and we have done some analysis in terms of cost savings. What is the cost savings to alleviate Eric from having to do a lot of the more of the oil changes, filter changes, wiper changes, those types of things when it comes to our fleet. And we look at this project, and it seemed like, $256 was kind of low for 4 positions, but this almost pays for itself because we've been able to reduce our O&M costs for our fleets across the city with having someone like this, because we're not having to send those larger repairs out to other entities for costs. We know how expensive it can be to repair things. A $50 part could cost you $1,000 to repair. That's what we see. Labor is the expensive cost. And so with this, that will alleviate more of that and allow more time for our mechanic to do more of those types of repairs.
So I have a question about that.
Sure.
So I'm in total favor of the Lube Tech, but I do want to point out that I remember clearly when it was that if we move to a fleet, that we're going to save money on maintenance and repairs. And now, come to look at this, it seems like that was not true. So I'm curious of how that comes out, because I was against the idea of going fleet in the first place, because I thought to myself, we're going to be doing these repairs in-house anyways, and it was told that, no, we aren't going to be doing these repairs. They're going to be doing most of them, and that's why we're going with a fleet. But is that not the case?
The fleet is pretty much a hybrid approach. What we found when we went with the fleet direction, we've really found that the only viable vehicles to purchase through the fleet program is our light duty vehicles. We don't use it for pursuit vehicles. We don't use it for an engine. We don't use it for ambulances. So we really find that it's our light duty vehicles, like our public works trucks. We don't use it for our specialized vac trucks and some of these other larger pieces of equipment. The cost associated with a lot of the repairs are large equipment that we're having to repair. Yes, there are some of these newer trucks that we have.
I mean, wasn't the idea behind fleet was that we weren't going to have to endure those repairs because we were going to be leasing these vehicles, so they weren't going to be ours, and if something happened, that they were going to be repairing?
Yeah,
them?
we're still saving money because all those light duty vehicles that we had, we were spending a lot of money on those. And it does require separate fleet maintenance. There's a separate maintenance package, which I guess the expectation was to go that direction. No one in town is certified for those, but typically with all the vehicles that we're receiving in the fleet, most of those are requiring just tire rotations, oil changes, and filter changes. The big impact items are the ambulances, the police cars, and some of the other equipment that we have that needs to be repaired as well.
So does that mean we're going to be moving away from the fleet scenario then, and we're not going to be buying fleet vehicles?
We're using the fleet at a pretty minimal rate. It's primarily our public works vehicles, and I think even the 4 battalion chief trucks. Yeah. Everything else we've pretty much found on the police side. I don't think there's anything under the fleet, maybe 1 or 2. Yeah, there's 2 vehicles. But we found that they kind of told us that we could use the pursuit vehicles. We found that it's not practical to use pursuit vehicles for the enterprise fleet. But it has benefited us in other ways for certain vehicles. So we're kind of using it as a hybrid approach. But we still have a big need for, even with our current fleet the way it is, for the mechanic and the lube tech.
Yep, no problem.
Cool.
Thanks.
And the last one is a temporary part-time paid reserve officer. And this is to perform some of the police duties to support the full-time staff and fully trained officers. This is currently someone we have working for the city that's as basically unpaid reserve. But they're tantamount, they're very helpful, and they're actually helping with our recruitment efforts too with the police department as well. I know that Sean and Jose and Ken have been working closely on trying to really establish a recruitment effort to try to bring in more officers to our department. So as we look at the expenditures, it's kind of the same chart. You'll see these are kind of the percent changes in our expenditures. Obviously, you see there's an increase in general fund expenditures. A lot of that has to do with these projects. IGT, because we're moving money out of the IGT. The general fund reserve expenses are down because we're not putting money into it. And then some of your enterprise funds. So gas enterprise actually is down, expenses are down 10%. Sewer enterprise is up, and so is water, and a lot of that is attributed to the expenses on the solar projects and some other capital projects that we have. And that kind of highlights all of the special, and then these are the special revenue funds. And then we have the capital projects funds. And that is my presentation. If you want to entertain me, I can kind of go through and highlight some of the purchases. So just for the public's wherewithal and for the council to kind of see what kind of highlight some of the items that we'll be purchasing this year. Like I said, we go as low as a label maker, but I won't start with the brand and the size. But some of the things that we're looking at, and I hope it doesn't sound like the street project list that I went over a few meetings ago, but we're looking at doing some comprehensive scanning of our building plans, a pilot training for our drones, MS4 program implementation. This is for our storm drain implementation that we've been receiving notices from the state that we need to start implementing. This has been a program that the city's had for 10 years that we need to comply with. And so this is an opportunity for us to jumpstart that program over the course of the next couple years to get this kick-started. We're also going to be doing some updates and overhauls on our cannabis regulations. I know there's been some conversations in the past. I've talked with a consultant, SCI, who we worked with in the past, to provide us kind of an overhaul and update on our regulations for cannabis. One of the big ones from finance is revamping the chart of accounts. One of the things that we've talked about even tonight is that we've got so many accounts that we have that we work with. We're going to really try to narrow those down and consolidate the chart of accounts. Next request, that's actually a program through Civic Plus that helps with public records request management. It'll make it a lot more, it'll make it a much more streamlined process for our public records requests. That'll help with the folks that are who are requesting it, as also the process in which we handle those internally. We're looking at a pilot wellness program for our employees, police department flooring, 4 new patrol vehicles of the PD, cameras and pan tilt zooms, MDTs and PC upgrades for our police vehicles, radio repeater and receiver, the new Can-Am ATV vehicle for PD to replace the one that's been inoperable for quite some time. We have some radios and accessories, bathroom remodel at the Coalinga Fire Department, exterior upgrades that we've talked about, the Fire Academy sponsorship, the door card key system upgrade at the fire department, 5 LifePak 35 cardiac monitors, the outdoor LED sign for the fire department, and then we have the fire engine as well. We have some things, just some decorative items. We're putting, having some decorations here with a Christmas tree and ornaments for City Hall, flooring and painting at City Hall, paving the City Hall and Police Department parking lot. The new fueling system at the airport. I know that we approved that tonight, but we're not going to receive it till the next fiscal year, so it needs to be in this budget. Airport lighting conversion. That'll be an LED conversion of the lighting at the airport. Banner decorations for light poles, electronic signage, the archway that's going to go, the electronic signage for the archway. Hanging some planter baskets and mounts in the plaza. Holiday lighting for City Hall and the Police Department and the Coalinga Fire Department. The outdoor food court design. We have the ambulance, 2 ambulance remounts, 1 new ambulance, and then a portion of the engine as well. We've got a lot of street projects. I've talked about a lot of those, so I'm not going to go into detail. These are but to highlight this is, as you'll see, these are all budgeted under Measure C. So you can see there's $847,000 just budgeted in Measure C funds that support all of these projects. This doesn't fund these projects. You can see these numbers are small, but they add up. So that's, it kind of reinforces the discussion that was earlier in terms of those projects. But you can see in the Caltrans grant fund, $4.5 million in projects, that's the grant funds. That's what Measure C is supporting that. We also have $88,000 budgeted for the ADU cottage home program. We also have the AHSC grant expense for the STI and TRA improvements. That project's currently out to bid. That's for all the new lighting along Houston, Valley, Pleasant, Louisiana, that whole area of all new solar lighting. We have, as we move on to the water enterprise fund, we have 2 pump repairs. We're doing some replacements of some of the doors out there. We've got some fencing. We're going to be doing some drive motors and gear drives, lemon torque switches, new forklift for the water treatment plant. We also have variable frequency drives for the intake pumps to help with efficiency. We have the water solar plant project. We've got the awning and paving at the public works yard. And then we also have the AMI grant project. I think I updated the council earlier this week that project's out to bid for the first phase. This is actually phase 2 of that project, which will hopefully complete that particular endeavor with the smart meters. We have for the gas fund, the anode bed rectifier replacements, and then we have a purchase of additional 120 meters. So we're trying to get ahead of the meters. These are all smart meters that we're purchasing for the gas system. So once we kind of get these meters in place, we can then build the infrastructure we need to actually provide the smart meter capability. As we move to the wastewater, we've got VFD pumps for the wastewater treatment plant, 2 new aerators for the ponds, the solar project expense, security fencing, a new sewer camera vehicle, that's for the van, for a small van and outfitting, and then design services for the Roosevelt sewer project. That's kind of a highlight of the projects. The total cumulative projects is about $4.9 million. Well, all of them is 31 million. That includes all the sewer, water, and gas projects as well. So I just wanted to highlight those, but that's, and we feel that we can proceed forward with these. I think the staff and departments are ready to pull the trigger on a lot of these projects. The plan is when the budget comes back on June 18th, that we will have a resolution that will have a list of these projects that are typically over our spending authority, but the resolution will authorize the purchase, so we don't have to come back to council to reauthorize the purchase for these particular items, so we can be efficient and get the best bang for our buck and get these items purchased. I think the PO's gonna be ready for the engine in no time, as well as the vehicles that we need to purchase, because some of those take a while because they have to be purchased, then outfitted, and then painted, delivered, and so we wanna get on these as soon as possible. But with that, that's the presentation. You'll have all the details and all the line items and for everything at the June meeting for formal adoption of the budget.
Council have any questions?
That's a lot of information. Thank you. It was put together very nice, too. Thanks.
Maya's done an amazing job. I couldn't do without her.
Any questions from the city treasurer?
I don't have any questions, but I'm happy to see that this is moving forward in this dynamic. I was very pleased when Sean stated that he would be given a monthly report, because there has been concern with myself that things are approved and nobody's monitored going forward, and they aren't being successful investments for our city. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to seeing this go forward. Thank you.
So, I guess this is kind of like a minute little detail. But I see that we have some laptop purchases in here, and Mize is 25%. Does that mean that's 25% from the general fund?
It comes out of different accounts, so
Okay.
I think it might be listed there.
So
but
it says 600. Does that mean she's getting a laptop that's cost 600, or does it mean she's getting one that costs 2,400? Okay, 2,800. Because I personally think that the laptops that council's got are trash. That's why I didn't get one. That's why when they gave it to me, I gave it right back. Because I was like, this isn't a good laptop. And so when I go to COG, they all have iPads, and they all have a stand, and they're all nice and beautiful. And I said, they said, how does your city let you get away with like that kind of stuff? And I said, I don't know. And they said, you should have some kind of say in that, shouldn't you? And I said, yeah. I said, so what do you guys do with your laptops? Because I was talking to, I think it was Clovis, and they said, well, after our term is over, then we get, I think it was Clovis, they said that we get to buy them. So that the depreciated amount, that they get a choice to buy them out. That way that that way the new people don't have them. So my point in this is that Shannon is only budgeted for 500 at 50%, which means she's getting a laptop that's just a little bit better than these. And she's getting a great laptop. And I'd like to see Shannon get a great laptop, and I'd like to see council get great laptops too, because I have to use my own MacBook that costs $2,400. This is a machine right here. Those are not machines. And so my point in this is, how long do you expect that these are going to last? If you purchase something that's cheap, you're going to expect to get a couple years out of them, and then they're not going to be very good. Whereas if you get a MacBook or something of that nature, quality-wise, it's going to last. And so I think it's a better purchase to get better items. Plus, specifically me, having a tech background, and I know not everyone likes Macs, but guess how many times my Mac has had a virus? 0. None. Never. It's never had any issues in the time that I've had it. And so, like, I'm completely in favor in people, one, getting something they're comfortable with using, but two, making sure that we budget for the years of service that we're going to use those laptops. And this only segues into a larger idea of making sure that we look at everything like that. Like, we have a lot of one-time expenses on here, like, and obviously we're not breaking them down. But just moving forward, I would like to make sure that when we make purchases, we're looking at that and saying, hey, how long is this item going to last? That way that you can have an idea in 5 years, you're going to need another one. I would say MacBooks, about 5 years. I would say PCs, maybe 3, and that's from my own professional standpoint of, you know, running a computer store for 20 years. And so that being said, I wonder how old the council laptops are.
These are 3 years old.
How old are those?
We had the tablets. They're at least 3.5 years.
Those laptops are that old?
Oh, yeah. They were, yeah. And I gave mine back because I tried it.
I
and
don't
was
need
like-
anything more than this.
Right. So some people don't utilize it a lot for that, but you know, when we're going to like, you know, different kind of meetings and stuff like that, I take my own because I'm like, okay, like I don't want to be, you know, having issues or having problems. But that being said, you know, I just think it's something to look at for the future, to where that we want to make sure that our people, the council, the staff, that everyone has good technology out there, that, and it makes a difference. And I think that these laptops are a perfect example of not good technology. These are bottom of the barrel.
Would the council like new laptops?
I think what he's trying to say is Shannon needs more money.
I think Shannon needs a better laptop.
I already wrote my
think-
note down, increase Shannon's laptop.
So I will bring back as a future agenda item something to deal with council laptops. Put it that way. And that way that it's each individual could make the decision based on that. So, but yes, for
Want
Shannon.
to incorporate
I
some
would-
funding though in the budget?
I'll make a future agenda item on it. That way that we can that way we can encapsulate it and you can get direction from the entire council. But absolutely, I'd like to see Shannon get a laptop that would be one that she's comfortable with and one that, you know, would be on the status that Mai's getting.
Maybe maybe equal the budget. Bring the one up to match the
We'll
other.
figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it's minute,
I'm
right?
looking out for the staff right here. I mean, you know, and I think that is an acceptable amount. Laptops for good ones are expensive.
We'll just
so.
have to remove our label maker.
Okay. All right. So do we have direction from council moving forward that they can move forward with this and bring us back the expanded budget with the minor revisions and changes that they're going to make moving forward? Everyone okay with that? You just need direction, right?
Yeah, we'll bring it
okay.
back in June.
All right. All right. That being said, we're going to move on to announcements, city manager's announcements.
I don't have any.
All right. Council members' announcements and reports?
I got an announcement. Just want to tell the public to show up for the varsity Road to the Valley Championship. The high school has been really blessed having a championship football team, a Valley champion football team, a Valley champion basketball team, and now the varsity baseball team. And congratulations to the JV team for being league champions too. So very excited. Friday at 4:30, I believe. So please go out there and support them.
Excellent. Any announcements from the treasurer? No? Okay, and mayor's announcements. I just want to thank everyone for coming. It makes a difference. I know this was a long one. I apologize. I really wanted to make sure the public had the impact for the budget, and you guys have done such a great job, and you really have, like the whole city staff. And I appreciate everyone reaching out to all of us and having conversations ahead of time. That way that everyone individual could understand that. So I definitely appreciate that. Future agenda items?
I have one. I'd like a future agenda item to look into making a hangar waitlist policy that prioritizes businesses at the airport versus individual hangars. Prioritizes a business over individuals. So we can get some more tax revenue coming in from the airport and the money spent.
Okay.
I got one. I think this is a follow-up. I want to see if we could get with Mid-Valley Disposal, or how, I don't know how the language is, to get these, whoever gets the junk from the backyards, the businesses, if they have some kind of proof where they're dumping these, because I'm starting to see.
Yes, so actually, briefly on that, we had a recent application submitted for someone that wanted to do that type of business. It triggered it's the exact same thing I thought about. I actually talked with Mid-Valley. I actually created an acknowledgement form that has to go with a business license if someone does want to do that. And it does require quarterly reporting of where the diversion goes and where they take that material. So it just happened, but I created that form so we can convey that. I think I was just actually talking with Mario about that just a couple days ago, because it did come up, and we do have an exclusive hauling contract with Mid-Valley. Mid-Valley felt like, hey, just as long as they don't dump the trailer there and have people to load it up like a container, but we also need to know where that diversion, because we are responsible for the diversion of recycled materials, trash, construction debris, all of that. So we need to make sure we're monitoring that. So we are implementing that if if folks are undertaking that type of business activity.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, just because, I mean, when the customer sits there and, I don't want the customer to get, scammed, saying, oh, paying an extra $100 or $200 and, that trash ends up in the creek and then they get at fault. So, to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. So I have one, and it is referring to a council laptop policy. To create a laptop policy that includes some kind of depreciation value to where that laptops are not hand-me-down passed to multiple members, and that if they wanted to, that they'd be able to, purchase that out at the end of the time. And also in that, looking to see, like, it used to be that everyone would get the same thing, but that's not who people are. People are very different. Some people don't like Mac, and some people like Mac, and some people don't like PC, and others do. So I'd also like to make it an individual thing, to where that if there's let's say a budget for your term that you get in. Let's say it'd be like if you're elected for 4 years, or we're going to assume that you would have this budget to purchase a laptop within that 4 years, and that then at the end of that 4 years, if you stayed into office, it would depreciate at a certain amount, and then you'd be able to buy it at that amount. And if not, then it would go back to the city, and it could be recycled into a staff member that doesn't have one, or something like that. And then the next council member come on, if they thought that was fine, they could just keep that. But we also have to make sure that we aren't having people use old technology out there. They come out with new stuff for a reason, because it keeps people moving forward. So, but that's my only thing, if we had something like that.
Yeah.
That being said, we have any more future agenda items? No? Okay. We have closed session. We have 4 items: city manager's performance evaluation. We have anticipated litigation. We have conference with property negotiators, and then we have I think item number 4 is no longer there. Is that correct?
No, 4 is there, but it's only 2 cases. Not
It's only 2 cases. So we have conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation for two cases and not 3. And with that being said, do we plan on reporting out?
No.
Nope. Meeting adjourned. Oh my goodness, you guys. That was 2 hours and 20 minutes.